Wide.
Yeah, you get wide.
Racing and forget it.
That's great racing, though, in there. And that's what the drivers wanted, was another spot around here to pass. And they look like they've got it with that increased length on that front straightaway.
The yellow and black car you get a glimpse of, that's Richie Hearn back on board Michael. And on board Robbie Gordon. As he comes down into the pits for his first stop, as the stops now come underway. And we're going to take a look at it from this point of view.
Okay, hits the mark. The guy goes in. That's the air jack in his left hand. Fueler's going in the side. The guys are changing the front tires up there. Robbie's talking to Derek Walker, resetting his fuel meter. Down it comes. That water you saw was just in case there was any extra fuel out there. They wanted to get that away so it didn't cause a fire. And away he goes.
And the other hose on top, just forward of the air jack hose, is the vent. As soon as they see fuel hit up there, fueling's done. What I think is fascinating is they can generally change 4 tires faster than they can refuel the car.
Well, of course, that's to do with the way they set the tank, because it's gravity fed, and they can't set it too high to make it go in faster, so the fuel flows slower and they can do the tires.
It's also something to see the IndyCar officials out when they're first setting up the pits at any one of the IndyCar racing events, measuring those tanks, measuring the angles, because everything has to be identical. They don't want you to get 1 second advantage anywhere.
I got to tell you, I used to sit in that cockpit going, come on, why are these guys taking so long? And then I sat out one time. I was out of the race early and sat in Rick Mears' pit while they did a pit stop, and I couldn't believe how fast they were doing everything.
Look how close Ribeiro is now on Zanardi. At the front of the field still, but the gap has closed down to 1.5 seconds. We'll be back right after this.
33 laps gone of 95, and all the pit stops just starting, so we're likely to have some extremely exciting action. Still Zanardi from Ribeiro, from Fernandez, from Moore. We noticed Blundell's already made his pit stop. He's dropped back to 19th place. Gilles de Ferran a couple of laps down, so Al Unser Jr. But the man leading the championship, Jimmy Vasser, is in 9th place as I speak. Michael Andretti, who can still really turn it on the street circuits. He won 4 out of 5 of the Torontos he's entered. Well, he's up there in 7th place trying to make pace on Paul Tracy. Bobby Riles, just a little bit adrift of Greg Moore. But Moore, Fernandez and Ribeiro are engaged in the battle, but Alex Zanardi isn't yet completely away from them. We're going straight back now to the circuit and Danny Sullivan, but first Paul Page.
PJ, of course, drives for Dan Gurney's All-American Racing and Toyota Power. They have been working with that engine. A lot of new pieces this weekend. Got them a little more horsepower, a little more RPMs. The team definitely working on their development, and in the hands of guys like PJ and Krosnoff, Fangio, once they get the power, look out.
Something else that happens here with the drivers, Paul, is when you're running through traffic, if you can, you try to pick your spot where to pass and close the guy in, lock him in behind a slower car so you can pull away in a couple of corners. You're always trying to find a way to play the traffic to your advantage and the other guy's disadvantage.
Over on the pit straight, they are laid out for Ribeiro right now. They also are laid out for Fernandez. They're the teams waiting for their cars to arrive. That's the Tasman team laid out there.
You don't think there's going to be any inter-team competition there, do you?
No, no problem. Yeah, right.
With those guys running as close as they are, which, by the way, those mechanics are watching on the screen. Look at this. They're coming in. They couldn't be any closer.
So both of them head in together, and Gary Gerald's there.
Well, this is exciting. Team pride on the line. Who's going to get the quickest service? Ribeiro, and behind him, Fernandez. They're separated by about 1 pit length here. That'll be a little bit of an advantage for Adrian if he gets down off the jacks quickly. Remember the 60-mile limit. Fernandez is moving first. Ribeiro still in front. They can't get the fuel in the car.
He was trying the whole pit stop to get that fuel hose in it. I don't think he's got any fuel on board yet.
And they have to manually get the car back up. They've moved the car so that the hose can get a clean connection. They still haven't got it in. Oh, what heartbreak for Andre Rivero.
They were stretching the hose too far to make the interlock earlier. Now they've moved the car. You can see the refueler shaking his head. And finally, you see a little blurb of fuel at the top, and Rivero goes out.
Boy, that fueler is upset because he knows he just cost his driver a tremendous amount of time on the track.
Well, now wait a minute. In his defense, the first time when they hit in, he was sitting a little bit out. Driver?
That's the driver.
Here's the leader in, Jack.
Alex Zanardi comes out of pit road, and he knows his crew watched that whole problem with Andre Rivero. Zanardi, on the other hand, hits his marks exactly. They have determined they will make no changes except add the fuel. In 12.8 seconds, the advantage for him, too, is the last pit. He didn't have to adhere to the 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. Now Jimmy Vasser comes in. He's complaining of grip problems. They're going to make an adjustment on the tire pressures for Jimmy Vasser. They feel like he's got to get some points, as you guys have said. And right now, they're still hunting for some of those single-digit points. Back to you.
Well, as Greg Moore came across the line, he was scored as the leader of the race. He's not yet made his pit stop, but he came out right behind Rivero. So next lap around, Rivero should pick up the lead.
Let me tell you, on that fueling situation, I've had the same problem here in Toronto where I got blocked. And what happened was that my crewman, John Haskett, actually pulled the tank all the way over to the car and fueled the car. So it's helped to have a big refueler.
Hussein Rivero thanking Zanardi. Nevertheless, it didn't happen. Moore stays out. The actual order on the course right now is Moore, Andretti, Zanardi, Perna, Jimmy Vasser as they last cross the line.
Jimmy Vasser really has to take advantage today of Gilles de Ferran and Al Unser Jr. Both of them have trouble. They're way, way back in the field. This is his day to add some points to his total.
There's Greg Moore as he stays out in front. Has not yet pitted. Mercedes power on that car. Apparently getting a little further on the fuel tank. Finally, Greg Moore comes in, and Jack Arute is there to greet him.
And his entire team is awaiting his mark. Now, each team has a series of marks on their pit stall. It's the driver's responsibility to hit them exactly. He does. Goes up on the jacks. Now, this is a very calm pit stop. This crew is always very calm. It really reminds me of the type of demeanor that their driver, Greg Moore, has. Waiting for the fuel. You can hear him revving up the engine. And he's off and away very quickly as right in front of Greg Moore, Scott Pruitt's team begins to get ready to service the Patrick car.
Michael Andretti came in at the same time as Greg Moore. Moore was in and out in 14.9 seconds.
Boy, it was
so Alex Zanardi picks up the lead.
Good stomp, but he lost that ground to Fernandez. That was the green and red car you just saw go by. Of course, he's on cold tires, so you can't go as fast as somebody who's on hot tires.
But now everybody has made their first stop of the day. 39 laps are complete of the 95-lap distance, and Alex Zanardi is back in front at the Molson Indy.
Has the lead, although we've got a problem there, but that's not for Alex Zanardi. Bobby Rahal has got into second place. Zanardi has made his pit stop. Bobby Rahal hasn't. Adrian Fernandez still hasn't made his pit stop. 42 laps completed by them. Paul Tracy hasn't completed his yet, and Greg Moore has now gone into the pits. He briefly led, did Greg Moore, with the Reynard Mercedes Firestone, but now he's made his pit stop. And Jimmy Vasser is the championship leader. He's now up to 8th place, and Mark Blundell, who made his pit stop a bit earlier, has now moved back up to 14th. Juan Fangio out, Matsushita is also out, and as far as points are concerned, Gilles de Ferran is 2 laps down, and also Al Unser Jr. is a lap down. But back to Danny Sullivan and Paul Page.
Another man that figures in the fight is also Zanardi. He is up at the front of the field, came in the pits in first place, went out in first. Rahal came in the pits in 5th and came out in 2nd. So he's the man that on the stops really made the best advantage. And Rivero had the worst part of it, came in 2nd. And and left the pits in 11th place.
Yeah, that fueling stop really cost him big time. But Bobby Rahal is always good around these street circuits. He's smooth, he's fast, he knows how to drive them. He's won here before. He's always a factor on these type of circuits.
And of course, least we forget in the championship fight, third place coming into this event in the fight was Gil de Ferret, who had his problems early on and is no factor whatsoever. And that leaves us with looking at Jimmy Vasser, who sits in 8th place. He'll pick up a few points and probably will stay in the lead.
Well, if he scores those points, but on a day like today, when your two main rivals in the championship are in trouble, that's when you have to score big. You've got to get more than an 8th place. He needs to get up there in that top 6. He'd like to be in the top 4 or 5.
There's Parker Johnstone. They finally get his car back away from the course, and by getting him back there, it at least prevented the possibility of a full course yellow. So he is back in a safe position. His day is done. Paul Tracy battles 3rd place Fernandez. And we, of course, saw that disastrous stop by Andre Ribeiro. Gary Gerould, any more information on what happened?
Talked with the fueler Robin Fast, and he said it was the car being mispositioned, didn't hit the marks. He was in close to the wall. They had to reposition the rear end. The concern was, I wondered if they'd had a malfunction that might impact their second and final scheduled pit stop. He said, no. It's a case if we get it on the mark, we'll be fine. But the 45 seconds in the pits cost him 9 positions, from 2nd for Ribeiro all the way down to 11th.
Yeah, and Danny, there you were. You weren't going to blame the driver, were you? Now we know where your background comes from.
Well, you know, what can I say? You know, it's a very fine line there with that. Whoa, there's Parker Johnstone's rear suspension.
Jackaroo?
What you're looking at, guys, is something that failed, 37 laps after the accident happened with Parker Johnstone. That suspension failure, that's what you've got to be worried about when you tap the wall or you spin. You see right here? And Parker is out of the car right here. And we're going to say real quick, boy, you thought you made it through unscathed, you were okay, but then this happened.
Well, we thought we did. We went a few laps down, which was a real shame because we got a lot of people from Motorola here, and the car was working real well.
What about the track conditions? You've been out there. How good are they? How much grip can you get on those concrete parts?
Well, you can right at the beginning when you've got full fuel and fresh tires, but within a few laps, you expect Dorothy Hamill to do a triple toe loop pass you. It gets pretty slick, but unfortunately, the damage from the first lap contact finally failed after that pit stop. It's too bad. The guys worked real hard. We look forward to Michigan.
Michigan's next. Remember, he was fast there last year, Paul.
Well, here's some new information. The 11th place car, Andre Ribeiro, formerly the pole, formerly 2nd. They have laid out once again to bring Ribeiro in. So we'll watch for that car to head in. Gary Gerould, any idea why they're bringing him back in?
Only thing we heard was he wants new tires. I don't know if he's got a vibration. I don't know if he suspects one's going down, but they've got 4 fresh Firestones laid out. The crew waits for him, and here he comes around the curve. Things going from bad to worse for this guy who had such high hopes starting from the pole. We'll see if they can get that fueling device in cleanly. This time they do. It won't take very much fuel, of course, because he was just here. Service is complete, and there he goes in 10.5 seconds. Now that's more like it.
So freshly shot now. Andre Ribeiro heads back into the fight, though the combination of pit stops has not helped his race at all. The leader is, of course, Alex Zanardi, possibly looking at win number 2 of the season and his career. Bobby Rahal is in 2nd place. We look back through the field, and there is Rahal, right behind Eddie Lawson's Delco car. Then comes Adrian Fernandez. You see Ribeiro there. He, of course, is well behind the lead, but there is Paul Tracy, and he is trying to catch Fernandez. So that's the closest interval on the circuit right now. Greg Moore is just behind Tracy in 5th place.
And I'm not so sure whether Steve Horn's telling him to help out his teammate Fernandez. Ribeiro, of course, trying to get his tires up to temperature, having just come out, and he's carrying a little heavier fuel load than Paul Tracy, so he's going to be a little bit slower than he'd like to be.